There is a moment in every seeker's life when movement stops making sense and stillness begins calling your name. Not the stillness of giving up, not the stillness of exhaustion, but the deeper stillness, the kind that feels like the inhale before sunrise, the gentle hush before a truth arrives. You feel it quietly, as if the soul is clearing space inside you, preparing you for something you have been avoiding, or perhaps something you have been praying for without knowing how to receive it. Swami Radha often said that all true transformation begins when the heart becomes still enough to hear what it has been trying to tell you your entire life. You do not force this stillness. You do not command it. You do not make it happen through discipline or strategy or the old habits of self-improvement. Stillness arrives the way dawn arrives, softly, gradually. Light gathering at the edges before you even notice that darkness has begun to fade. Something inside you is shifting, not through effort, but through readiness. You are beginning to feel the first quiet movements of truth. The truth beneath your personality, beneath your performed strength, beneath every role you learn to play to be accepted, to be loved, to belong. The truth of who you actually are when you stop trying to be who the world taught you to be. This truth does not rush. It reveals itself the way the morning sky reveals color, slowly, softly, without needing to prove anything. And you are finally becoming the person who can notice it. There is a deep intelligence in the heart that does not operate through logic, ambition, or the restless demands of the mind. It speaks in a different language, a language of subtle knowing, a language of warmth, a language of clarity that feels like light touching water. The heart does not shout. It simply waits for you to become still enough to hear it. And when you do, everything changes. Not always suddenly, but unmistakably, like the moment between night and dawn, when the world is the softest version of itself, and you realize the light was always going to return. That is where you are now, in the gentle threshold between what has been and what is trying to become. You may not see the full picture yet. You may not understand the why, the how, or the where it all leads, but you can feel an inner rearrangement, a quiet shift in your priorities, a soft tug toward sincerity that is impossible to ignore. You are tired of half-truths, tired of pretending, tired of carrying masks that never fit the shape of your soul. You want clarity, real clarity, soul clarity, the kind that comes not from thinking harder, but from listening deeper. The kind of clarity that rises when your heart becomes still. Swami Radha described this as the light of awareness, a light that does not come from outside, but from the inner sanctuary, where the soul keeps the wisdom you once thought you had lost. This is the light that dawns when you stop running from yourself. This is the light that appears when you stop negotiating with fear. This is the light that becomes visible when you stop seeking the world's permission to become who you were always meant to be. You are standing on the edge of your own becoming, and your heart knows it. That is why it calls you inward again and again, asking for stillness, asking for honesty, asking for that moment of surrender when the truth is allowed to rise. And truth rises only in the heart that is ready to be sincere. You have lived long enough in the noise of the world, surrounded by demands, expectations, roles that never felt like home, and dreams that were built from what you thought you should want, instead of what your soul actually longs for. But now, the longing is louder. the old life feels heavier. The old patterns feel shallow. The old distractions feel dull. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something is awakening in you. Your inner dawn is approaching, and dawn does not ask permission to rise. It simply rises because light cannot stay hidden when the heart becomes still. Notice how your life has been shifting lately. Certain relationships feel different. Certain conversations feel empty. Certain ambitions no longer feel like they belong to you. Certain dreams from the past suddenly glow again as if asking for your attention. This is not confusion. This is clarity clearing space. This is the heart preparing you for a new alignment. When the heart becomes still, the truth does not wait. It begins to rise. It rises in your intuition. The sudden inner yes, the sharp inner no, the quiet sense of guidance that feels too precise to be random. It rises in your body, the tension you can no longer ignore, the tiredness that speaks in full sentences, the peace you feel around certain people without knowing why. It rises in your dreams, symbols, images, messages that feel like echoes from a deeper reality. It rises in your longing, a longing not for more noise, but for more honesty, more peace, more alignment, more truth. And slowly, the dawn inside you begins to open. You start to see things clearly, not in the sharpness of judgment, but in the softness of understanding. You see what no longer nourishes you, what no longer belongs, what no longer supports the person you are becoming. You also see what is calling you. A path, a practice, a connection, a truth that feels like home, even if it terrifies you. The heart becomes still, not when the world is quiet, but when you are finally ready to hear what the heart has been whispering beneath the noise. Be sincere, Radha would say. Be willing to see. She did not teach through force or grand declarations. She taught through illumination, through light, through clarity, through the gentle dismantling of illusion. You are entering that kind of clarity now. The thoughts that once felt overwhelming have softened. The fears that once felt controlling have loosened. The desires that once felt urgent have quieted. Not because they disappeared, but because you are beginning to operate from a deeper place. You are no longer living from reaction. You are living from awareness. You are no longer chasing the world. You are listening to your soul. You are no longer trying to be seen. You are trying to see yourself. And that is the essence of spiritual maturity. Stillness is not passive. Stillness is powerful. Stillness is the doorway through which truth enters. You are learning how to stand in the inner sanctuary without running, without hiding, without performing. You are learning how to face yourself with devotion instead of judgment, with sincerity instead of shame, with light instead of fear. This is the kind of inner work that reshapes destiny. When the heart becomes still, truth rises like dawn, and dawn changes everything it touches. Old shadows dissolve. Old stories collapse. Old wounds soften. Old identities fall away. And something new, something luminous, something unmistakably yours begins to emerge. You may not be able to name it yet, but you can feel it. A softening, a clearing, a remembering, a gentle return to the truth you abandoned to survive the world. Now, the world cannot dictate your path. Your inner light does. You are beginning to see yourself, not through the distorted mirror of expectations, but through the clear mirror of awareness. And in that mirror, your true essence is rising. It rises the way dawn rises, quietly, steadily, inevitably. This is not a fleeting moment. This is the beginning of a deeper life. A life built not from fear, but from clarity. Not from noise, but from stillness. Not from imitation, but from authenticity. This is your dawn, and dawn is only the beginning. Stay with me, because now we enter the deeper revelations that come after the first light. The truths that awaken when the heart is still enough to receive them, and when the soul begins to rise into its own morning. There comes a moment after the first light when something inside you grows very quiet, not silent in emptiness, but silent in recognition. A deep inner knowing begins to awaken, like the soft glow that appears before the sun touches the horizon. You cannot force this moment. You cannot rush it. You cannot manufacture it through willpower, discipline, or ritual. It arises naturally when you have become honest enough to stop resisting your own truth. The heart becomes still, not because life has stopped moving, but because you have stopped running. And in that stillness, a different kind of clarity begins to form. A clarity that feels less like information and more like remembrance. You remember what you once knew before the world taught you to forget. You remember the innocence that lived beneath your fears, the courage that lived beneath your doubts, the light that lived beneath your pain. You remember the version of yourself that existed before you began performing, before you began pleasing, before you began shrinking. This remembrance does not arrive all at once. It opens slowly, petal by petal, like a lotus waking in water that finally feels safe. You begin to see that your confusion was not a failure. It was a purification. It was the dissolving of noise that never belonged to you. You begin to sense that your pain was not punishment. It was the pressure that deepened your sincerity. You begin to realize that the longing inside you was not weakness. It was guidance, the soul knocking from the inside, asking you to return. When Swami Radha spoke of awakening, she did not describe enlightenment as something dramatic or foreign. She described it as a dawning within consciousness, a dawning within the heart, a dawning within your deepest honesty. She taught that when you become still, your own awareness begins to shine through the layers you spent years building. And that shining, that inner radiance, is the first true glimpse of who you are. You do not need to earn it. You do not need to deserve it. You only need to see it. And seeing requires stillness. As the dawn inside you grows brighter, you begin noticing shifts. Small, delicate, unmistakable shifts that signal the rise of deeper truth. You feel less compelled to explain yourself. Because clarity does not argue, you feel less attracted to chaos and noise. Because your soul recognizes how much it costs you, you feel less impressed by intensity and more drawn to sincerity. You feel less willing to abandon yourself for the comfort of others. You feel less dependent on external validation and more grounded in inner confirmation. These changes arise quietly, but they mark the threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. And the space between the two is where the heart finds its stillness. It is in this stillness that truth rises. Not truth as opinion, not truth as ideology, not truth as spiritual performance, but truth as recognition of what resonates, what aligns, what nourishes, what frees, what awakens. You begin to realize that most of your suffering came from ignoring your own inner voice. And most of your breakthroughs came from honoring it. The heart becomes still when it becomes honest. And honesty is not harsh. Honesty is not cold. Honesty does not attack. Honesty reveals. It reveals where you abandoned yourself in the name of belonging. It reveals where you betrayed your truth in the name of safety. It reveals where you dimmed your light in the name of peace that never came. Honesty shows you not what you did wrong, but what you are now ready to do differently. It shows you the parts of your life that cannot follow you into your next chapter. It shows you the habits that once protected you but now limit you. It shows you the relationships that quietly drain your soul. It shows you the boundaries your heart has needed for years. It shows you the path your deeper self has been longing to walk. This clarity is not loud. It does not demand. It does not threaten. It does not overwhelm. It arrives the way light arrives, softly, consistently, unapologetically. And you know it is truth because it brings peace, not pressure. Truth does not confuse you. It simplifies you. Truth does not dull you. It awakens you. Truth does not push you. It opens you. Truth does not frighten you. It frees the part of you that was always waiting to be liberated. And once you experience this clarity, you cannot return to living blindly. Once you taste this stillness, you cannot go back to noise. Once you feel this inner light, you cannot pretend you do not see. You may falter, you may slip, you may take a step backward, but even then, you will know. Because a heart that has touched truth does not forget the feeling. It becomes impossible to lie to yourself about what you feel, what you want, what you know, what you are being called toward. You begin to walk differently, with more softness, more awareness, more sincerity. The world does not change, but your vision does. You no longer react from habit or fear. You respond from truth. And truth, once awakened, becomes your inner dawn. A dawn that rises every time you return to stillness. A dawn that strengthens every time you choose sincerity over performance. A dawn that brightens every time you trust your inner voice over the expectations that once shaped you. There is a sacred moment when your inner dawn becomes unavoidable. A moment when you realize you can no longer live as the smaller version of yourself. You may not know who you are becoming yet, but you know you cannot return to who you were. This threshold is not meant to be rushed. It is meant to be witnessed. It is the moment where the heart bows inward and listens deeply to the wisdom it once feared. It is the moment where your soul whispers, not to demand, but to invite you into a life aligned with your inner truth. To invite you into a path illuminated by your consciousness, not your conditioning. To invite you into a relationship with your own essence. A relationship built on sincerity, trust, and devotion. This is the beginning of living from within. This is the beginning of walking as one who has awakened to their own inner light. You start to feel a new kind of responsibility, the responsibility to honor what you see, what you feel, what you know. Not because you are obligated, but because your soul recognizes that ignoring truth is a form of self-abandonment you can no longer tolerate. You begin choosing with more care. You begin speaking with more clarity. You begin loving with more discernment. You begin allowing what feels aligned and quietly releasing what does not. And every release makes space for the dawn to rise more fully inside you. Swami Radha taught that clarity comes to the sincere heart, not the perfect heart, not the disciplined heart, not the unbroken heart, the sincere heart, the heart that is willing to see the truth, feel the truth, and live the truth, even when it means letting go of who you were taught to be. Sincerity is the bridge between darkness and dawn. Sincerity is the threshold where awakening begins. And you, right now, are standing in that sincerity. You are standing in the inner light that rises when the heart becomes still. And as you stand in this light, you will notice something extraordinary. Your life begins to rearrange around your clarity. People respond differently. Opportunities appear unexpectedly. Old patterns fall away gently. New paths open naturally. Not because destiny changed, but because you did. A still heart is a magnet for truth. A sincere heart is a magnet for alignment. A conscious heart is a magnet for destiny. This is why truth rises like dawn, not abruptly, not violently, but with devotion. Dawn does not rush. Dawn does not force. Dawn does not demand. Dawn reveals. It reveals the world as it is. It reveals yourself as you are. It reveals the path you are ready to walk. And in this gentle rising, a deeper realization appears. The realization that nothing was missing. You were simply not still enough to see. Now you see. Now you hear. Now you know. And this knowing is not temporary. It is sacred. It is the truth that lives beneath every fear. It is the truth that rises beneath every confusion. It is the truth that returns every time your heart becomes still. This is the dawn within you. A dawn that will continue to rise as long as you continue to listen. Stay with this light. Honor its softness. Let it guide you gently into the life that has been waiting for your awakening. For when the heart becomes still, truth rises like dawn. And once dawn rises, you cannot return to the night you outgrew.